Hello guys, how are you? I'm Robbie from EnglishHarmony.com and I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking because I'm sure you asked me how are you, right? And I'm also quite sure that you've been heeding to my advice that I gave you in the last video. In case you didn't check it, you may want to check it right here or click on this link and watch this video where I'm telling you that it is of the utmost importance to engage in a lot of spoken English practice in order to become fluent, because even though you may not want to face this reality, but the truth is, the fact is, my dear friend, no matter how much you do in terms of your grammar improvement, in terms of your vocabulary building, in terms of your comprehension improvement and reading and writing ability improvement, right? No matter how much you work on those aspects of your fluency, if you don't engage in a lot of spoken practice, your fluency just won't improve to the degree that you want, to the level you want to see. And obviously by the end of this year, your commitment is to become a truly fluent speaker, so you may want to engage in a daily spoken English practice, no matter how little it is, It might be just 5 to 10 minutes, and obviously the more, the better, But even if it's 5 to 10 minutes, it's going to contribute to your bottom line. It's going to contribute to your fluency big time. Believe me, been there, done that. I've been speaking with myself like I'm speaking now with you for years, and it's really helped me to improve my spoken fluency. I truly believe that all these spoken practice sessions have contributed to my own fluency big time, And in the last video we spoke about doing some routine practice such as counting, if you're engaged in a lot of counting in your daily job, for instance, where you have to pack things and then you count them, So basically, if you do a lot of routine things on a daily basis, you may want to do them in English. Counting and commenting on your actions, That way you'll make sure that English is kind of wired into your brain. And today we're going to talk about the fact that anybody, any of us foreigners, is capable of self-correcting. Basically, once we're past that stage where we are just beginners, once we're past that stage and we are quite comfortable speaking even in simple terms, once we've achieved that stage, we are capable of correcting ourselves because, let's be honest with ourselves, guys, we are quite intelligent, right? We are intelligent enough to spot our mistakes. When we say things wrong on most occasions, right? More often than not, we actually catch ourselves making a mistake. But here's the trick. It's very important not to try to correct yourself right in the middle of conversation by all means, because if you become too conscious of the mistakes you're making, your conversation, your fluency might be affected detrimentally, You might actually hamper your fluency, and then eventually you end up getting stuck for words because you constantly analyze your speech and you get nowhere. So basically you have to find the fine line between constantly checking your speech for mistakes and making mistakes and taking no notice of them. So obviously you have to be fluent enough, yet at the same time be conscious of things you might say wrong or things you're not sure of, and make a mental note of those things, And that's called self-correction. Basically, you speak, you make notes, you make mental notes of your mistakes, right? And then you may even want to jot them down on a piece of paper or use some other modern technological means, right? Record them onto your smartphone or whatever, on your iPad. I'm not really well versed in these terms because I'm an old school guy. I have my laptop, my camera phone, sorry, not my camera phone, my camera, my HD camcorder right in front of me, and that's it. My phone is one of the simplest models in the market, So you may want to record somehow things that you have to look up later on, right? But you don't have to fall for the trap of believing that somehow only others can pick up your mistakes, and that it's not worthwhile doing this self-practice because you kind of don't spot your mistakes, and then your speech becomes erroneous because your speech becomes riddled with mistakes. All of a sudden, you will just damage your fluency, and that's why you don't start a habit of speaking with yourself. It's wrong. It's not going to happen. You have to do this self-practice. You have to engage in a lot of spoken self-practice if you're anything serious about your fluency. And don't mind those relatively few mistakes that will go unnoticed, because I strongly believe that you are capable enough of spotting 90% of mistakes that you might be making. And actually, the very word mistake, we have to define what is considered a mistake. And a mistake might be a word that you use wrong, the wrong tense, you conjugate the word wrong, although there are not too many conjugations in the English language, and that's the beauty of English. It's quite simple enough, My own language has, if I'm not mistaken, 7 grammar, I'm not really sure how they're called, declinations, or I'm not really well versed in grammar terms, because after all these years I've been focused primarily on speech development and not on the grammar terms. I have forgotten most of these grammar terms that I was very, very comfortable with years ago. All these years ago, I was actually doing the wrong thing. I was learning grammar, vocabulary, but I wasn't focusing on my speech. Now I'm quite the opposite. I'm all about speaking, because that's the single biggest important thing that will actually contribute to your fluency, to your oral fluency. So let's draw a line and reiterate what I was talking about today. Basically, it's very important to do some spoken practice and do it quite regularly. And it's important to spot your mistakes, but not be too hung up on your mistakes. But whenever you spot it, you might have said something wrong, or you're unsure of this or that particular thing you said, make sure you look it up later on. Go on Google, online, right? The internet is the single biggest database we all have access to. So there's no need basically for anything else. Just go on Google, and what you may want to do is put in that sentence or a phrase that you said but you're not really sure of. Put it into quotes and Google it up and see what comes up under that particular keyword. Because anything you enter into Google and Google it up is essentially a keyword, right? No matter how long it is, it might even consist of 5-6 words, but it's still a keyword as far as Google is concerned, right? And if you put it in quotes, what you'll be doing is you'll be actually doing a search for that particular specific phrase, and if there's none or very few results coming up, it means that that particular phrase is actually not used by native speakers. But if there's loads, like hundreds and thousands, and normally there'd be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions, very popular phrases would come up in hundreds of millions search results, then you can rest assured that that is the right way of saying that particular thing. But if there's very few results, or you don't come up with any search results for that particular phrase, then it's a sure indication that it's the wrong way of saying it, And then you may want to get rid of the quotes and do a search on that general keyword and see if you can find the right way of saying this or that particular thing. I've been doing it for a long time, and it's a crucial instrument into improving one's fluency, because it makes it quite obvious what speech patterns are natural, and basically the spoken language and the written language, which is recorded in billions of websites, well, probably not billions, but billions of Google indexed pages, right? Those two, the spoken language and the Google index, would overlap, and basically what you see on Google would be a quite sure indicator of what's being spoken by real people in real life, So this is one instrument that you may want to use to correct your English, and you may want to check out this video as well, because I'm actually showing you guys how to do it, how it's done in real life. So basically, self-correct yourself. Don't fall for the trap of believing that you can't correct yourself, that you have to have somebody else's feedback. Yes, feedback is invaluable, but more often than not, in real life, people won't correct your English. When you communicate with other English speakers, they won't be interrupting you after every mistake you make and suggesting you what's the right way of saying this or that particular thing. More often than not, people won't do that because it's actually rude. For one thing, I believe that it's rude to start teaching others if you're not asked for advice, right? And secondly, if people would do that, there would be no natural communication. So what I've observed in real life myself is that on 99% of occasions, people just won't correct mistakes made by their conversation partners, And that's a simple fact, my friends. So you may want to start engaging in a lot of spoken practice, and rest assured that you are intelligent enough to self-correct yourself, and over time, over the next few months, before the year is over, you will become very, very good at it. And it's crucial to your learning curve, to spot those mistakes and make sure you learn the right way of saying this or that particular thing. And you also have to bear in mind, my dear friend, that you don't necessarily have to spot every single one of those mistakes. You don't have to do that. If you spot 50% of your mistakes, that's okay, because over a longer period of time, what's going to happen is, for argument's sake, let's assume that there's 1,000 mistakes that you would potentially make, in total. It's a very wrong assumption. Obviously, you can't put your finger on the exact amount of mistakes you could possibly make, but let's just assume that that's the case, right? There's 1,000 mistakes. During every single conversation, you would make 2, 3, maybe 10 mistakes, depending on how long that particular conversation is, right? So let's say out of those 5 mistakes, you correct yourself on 3, 4, 5 of them. Basically, sorry, did I say out of those 5 mistakes? If I did so, I'm sorry, what I meant is 10 mistakes, right? Out of those 10 mistakes, you correct yourself on 50% of occasions. So the rest of them, other 5 mistakes, go unnoticed. But then surely, within the next few months, at some stage, those mistakes that went unnoticed will be picked up by you at some stage, because we all have tendency of saying pretty much the same thing the whole time. So certain mistakes would be repeated, and then at some stage you will catch that particular mistake, you will spot it, and then you will deal with it, And out of those 1,000 mistakes, over time you will cherry pick most of them, and after a few years, a few years down the line, all those 1,000 mistakes will be dealt with, So basically, advice number 1, do a lot of self-spoken practice, a lot of English speaking practice. Advice number 2, rely on your own intelligence when it comes to spotting mistakes. Advice number 3, don't be too hung up on spotting all of your mistakes. Just make sure that you spot a few of them and then look things up online and incorporate those newly learned speech patterns, phrases, words. Utilize them in your daily English conversations, in your self-practice sessions. Obviously, the best way to go about your fluency improvement is to speak with other people. But, first of all, you may not have so many opportunities to speak with others. And secondly, when you speak with yourself, there's a huge advantage to that. You are not stressed out. The stress element, my dear friend, is actually removed. You don't have to account to anyone. you can actually give free rein to your fluency, which means you can speak however you want, how fast you want, with whatever accent you want. You can improvise, you can experiment with things, and you can come up with the best way of saying this or that particular thing, and you can fine-tune your fluency while engaged in these self-practice sessions. And that's what I'm doing now, actually. I'm speaking with you, my dear friend, from yearoфenglish.com. But what I'm essentially doing is I'm actually exercising my mouth and I'm practicing my own spoken English. So you may want to do the same because it's going to develop your fluency to a high standard if you stick with it for the rest of the year. Okay, my dear friend, thanks for staying with me and see you soon again. Bye-bye.